All right, so what do we got, Riley?
Well, we have some of the snow skate examples that we've been testing, ranging from a bone stock, old school, bi-deck Burton snow skate, and then we have some of the last two prototypes that we've been testing the most, and then we have the latest, which actually has a ski platform that David designed and pressed. These three actually all share the same foot platform, the same deck.
Yeah, the same deck.
But they have radically different ski configurations.
Both our previous ones were relying on cutting up skis, and we were basically trying to work with the side cut and the shape of whatever we could get. So this is a significant departure in the fact that we are developing what we want from the ground up, and we're not having to try to
Frankenstein the other stuff to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a huge departure because it truly is a unique shop-built snow skate. Every element of this is garage made. All right. We've got prototypes of wild new shapes. So is this the first time it's ever been introduced to snow? Whoa. Well, it's doing stuff. It's definitely leaning and steering. And look at the tracks it's creating. It's getting some pretty bad drag though. Look at this track. This is micro steer.
That's your track?
Yeah. I'm just rolling my ankles and just carving. I mean, look, that is unbelievable. It has no trouble maintaining momentum, so it's not dragging. This isn't really steep. I wasn't like in the hardest pack, but it was definitely the... Here, try it. It's like ridiculous. It carves like a skateboard.
Yeah, I can just lean and take it out and then bring it back. like it just does exactly what you expect it to do for lean to steer.
Yeah. That's bizarre. It floats really well in the snow. Whoa. It turns a radius.
Nice. So one of the things we need to determine is if the steering is too responsive, once we're going fast.
And that's where I'm a little concerned, because it is almost twitchy. Just on this stuff, it's perfect. But I can tell if you were going fast and it was turning like that, it would be pretty exciting.
God, that's taken a lot to stay on that.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It wants to dump you off. This thing is just inviting you to ride it. And it's turning and carving.
I wasn't watching. I was terrified.
Barely surviving. Well,
whoa!
I was afraid of that.
All right, well, let's show the camera that real quick. What happened was We had some plastic surgery on the nose.
I feel like if the whole base of the ski was supported, that wouldn't happen though.
No, and I was actually worried about, like, because I put this, I'd arranged where I was gonna put these bolts before I cut out the ski, and just look how
Close to the edges they were.
Yeah. Now, it's obvious why that snapped. There's so much energy just barreling through that system. And that nose is such a cantilever. I really don't want to have to reinforce it with fiberglass though. Like anything to avoid fiberglass. Okay, so we just got back from taking this thing out. We gave it a thrashing. What worked well on this thing?
The lean to steer. The lean to steer, and I would say, even though we didn't get it into really deep snow, it performed well by floating and maintaining the nose out of the snow. As you're trying to maneuver, the amount of ankle and body lean you put into it is the exact amount of turning that you're receiving out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's predictable and it's stable and it feels like it wants to return back to a center point.
It's really surprising how stable it is. With how much it can turn and how primed it is to react, it still does a straight line and goes where you point it really well. What didn't work so well with this one though? There's a couple things that were, some were problematic, some were just like, oh, it's not quite what we want, right?
Yeah, and we knew going into it that the kicktail was going to be a bit
suboptimal for
of
sure.
a challenge. We've definitely made an improvement here, but it needs to be able to compete with something like this because
this has got a kicktail that just works.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the only asset that this has is the kicktail. And we have to at least recognize that.
Yeah, and the kicktail isn't just a function of the deck kicktail, it's how it interacts with the shape and the location of the shapes on the ski. So it's a little bit more complex. But there's more. There's one thing that definitely didn't work on this guy. So what happened with this?
Well, because there's definitely a stress riser right here.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit something, it'll fracture. Because we're trying to make something as rigid as possible.
Mm.
Anywhere there's a stress riser is going to be a high risk of catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
Which is what we've got here.
What's next then? What's the next steps? The next thing we're going to try?
Well, sounds like the first step is just getting a more robust subframe to be able to distribute the load and prevent breakage.
Mm-hmm.
And then optimizing the kicktail.
Yeah, optimize the kicktail. Anyway, what are your final impressions?
I'm shocked. Most of our version 1s don't work this well, so
yeah.
I think we're off to a really good start. And if we can just make minor improvements to the foundations that we've got here, we'll be able to produce some rather impressive results.
So why are we going through all this trouble? What are we trying to achieve here?
Well, we're trying to make a product that works and feels like a snowboard or a skateboard on the snow.
Mm-hmm. Without
all the unnecessary pieces of equipment like bindings and boots, and is easy to throw in the back of the car and take with you and always have.
So why doesn't this work for that?
Well,
this is the traditional bi-skate. This is an old Burton.
Why are you so terrible? Well, it basically cannot lean to steer.
Mm.
The way that the ski is attached and the shape of the ski and the type of the ski makes it so that the edge does nothing when you lean the deck over. And if you lean the deck over too far,
it tips over,
it tips over, or it dumps the rail of the deck into the snow, and then it completely destroys everything that's happening.
So the way you have to ride this guy
is you have to use your kicktail. So it can be ridden, but it requires a completely different way of riding than how you would just ride a regular longboard. In order to change direction, you always have to be prepared to use the tail to swivel and then grab the edge. And even that can be difficult because the edge won't engage.
Yeah. You can't just point it down the hill and make it to the bottom of the hill.
No.
You cannot point and say, go this way. Because if you try to do that, it just drifts off and does whatever you have
wants.
to.
And now you're going sideways, going a lot faster than you want. And the only way to correct it is to get on the tail and try to smear the front back.
You have to commit to this very hard thing you really don't want to do.
And when you mess it up, it grabs the rail and it just scorpions you.
Which is, I mean, it's a thing, but it's not riding like a skateboard.
No, but it is fun, and the fact that it has a kicktail means that you can now do tricks that you normally couldn't do on the snow, and it's just convenient because it's light and simple and small, and I can do it with my regular skate shoes on. So it's a valuable piece of kit.
So what did these versions do? What did they contribute? And
well, one other thing that I wanted to point out with the Burton is that as soon as you get in any more than 3 inches of snow, it just completely stops dead. There's just not enough surface area, and there's just too many nooks and crannies and edges for snow to pile up in and just get stuck. So the other generations have more surface area, more ski platform with wider, larger decks. So these will work significantly better in deeper snow. And because there's edge and pre-lean and side cut and rocker, there is a little bit more lean to steer to be able to ride it as if you're riding a skateboard or a longboard down the ski slope.
So how is this then different than a Hovland or another modern snow skate brand? Because they have the bigger surface area.
The thing that I've found with those Hovlands that they suffer from is actually quite similar to these things, where there is more lean to steer just because they've optimized the ski and the deck, but it still has the ability to start drifting in the opposite direction that you want it to, and it can grab the rail and dump it over and then catch you off.
So these guys, we've got what we call the pre-lean, and so that means it's always tracking somewhat, and we've also bent the ski out and to have a lot of rocker, so that essentially what's happening is you're not engaging the whole ski all of the time. So when you want to lean, you start to engage these further out edges than when you want to go straight. And as part of that construction, the whole thing is rigid and doesn't flex, right?
So we're not dependent on all of these complex materials that require all these fancy glues and things and reinforcement to be able to create a surface that can flex and change shape as it's loaded. We can essentially bake all of that complexity into a single shape and mount that onto a deck.
Yeah, and the goal is basically to create something that eventually is just one monolithic unit that does it all without having to have this complex layup structure that we're handicapped by right now.
Yeah, and it just simplifies everything by eliminating this need to flex.
Well, why not just snowboard? What are you searching for that you can't get from the snowboard?
A snowboard is a highly optimized piece of equipment. It has been built for terrain that can be found in the double black diamond areas of the ski resort. So you need sophisticated bindings, heavy-duty reinforced snowboard boots, and a deck or a snowboard that has these complex flex characteristics that are optimized for the locations of the bindings. So all of these things are great, and they work incredibly well for extreme conditions.
Yeah. So to take them to their fullest, you need a whole mountain.
You need the entire mountain and the steepest, most inaccessible parts of that mountain to really be able to appreciate a snowboard. Whereas a snow skate is something that can be easily transported, requires no more than skateboard shoes, and can take low angle intermediate terrain and turn it into the ultimate longboard.
Yeah. It makes the simple things and the accessible things interesting and fun.
And when the conditions aren't ideal for deep powder on a big snowboard, that's when this is ideal.
Yeah. I mean, what you said to me a bunch of times is, I mean, if it's an ideal powder day, you are on the mountain with your skis, and you are utilizing those prime conditions with your prime equipment. But 90% of the days you're going out doing anything,
it hasn't snowed in 2 weeks, and it's all hard packed.
And you're not even going up on the mountain. You're just going somewhere nearby.
Yeah. So to me, this just accesses a wider, more available amount of terrain, and it makes it fun because it's taking something that would normally be unchallenging on a big heavy-duty snowboard, and it makes it now extremely challenging to be able to try and maneuver and keep speed under control.
Yeah, and I think it's not that it's challenging. You're interacting more with the features that the high-performance snowboard basically can just ignore.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's a higher degree of interaction. All right.
So stay tuned, because longboard technology is now entering the snow world. Over and out.